So let me come to the developments this week at the Assurance Committee.
I'm sure you've seen all the headlines.
Yes, I've seen all the headlines. I've seen all the publications. I'm being portrayed as somebody who probably is abusing my office as chairman of the Assurances Committee. I think that it is important to state for the record that since becoming chairman of the newly established Assurances Committee under our new standing orders, Order 225 of the new standing orders, I have had the following ministers and heads of institutions appear before me and the committee. The Honorable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has appeared. And we've had in this country vigorous debates on state capture, why we are not getting the public lands published. We've been pursuing that for more than 3 years and all of that. So it was one of the anticipated hearings. It passed off without incident. I was not accused of being a bully. The Honorable Health Minister, the Honorable Okoboy, appeared before the committee. Interestingly, at the time we were having a national discourse on the ambulance spare part scandal, and it also passed off without incident. The Honorable Okoboy did not say that I had treated him unfairly. We've had the Minister for Roads and Highways, the Honorable Asensu appear before the committee. And then we have had the head of the NIA, Professor Kenatefa, also appear before the Assurances Committee. So it is important to stress that a lot of the publications out there, the headlines out there, they attempt to portray me as somebody I am not. I mean, people can go back to all. Unfortunately, these are public hearings. The parliamentary social media handles and websites have the footage available, and people can really go and assess my work.
Have you watched the video again?
Yes.
Do you think that you were a bit emotional and extremely passionate, especially because it had to do with the suffering of your people? Something that, drained you.
Yeah.
Do you think that perhaps, it was an emotive thing for you?
So I'll come to that. I'll come to the subject matter. But I just think that it's important. You see, I've been in the public space for decades. We've been doing this show together for more than 15 years now. So people know who we are. They attempt to suddenly portray me as some bully, some dictator, some autocrat, somebody who is probably not well-mannered. It's really off the mark, totally without basis, and most unfair. Now, having said that, it is absolutely essential to point out that the matters that came up for scrutiny, we all must bear in mind that the Assurances Committee, our mandate, under Standing Order 225, is to pursue assurances that have been made on the floor. So if ministers don't have outstanding assurances which they made and have not kept faith with their timelines, we don't invite them, because it will be a waste of public time and everybody's time. So already, on the matter to do with the spillage, key assurances and government commitments have not been met. And that is why we invited the Minister for Works and Housing.
Was that the only
No, there
issue?
were about 10 other issues.
Okay.
Yeah, with drainage, dredging, matters to do with flood control and all of that. Now,
sorry.
Yeah.
So all those other issues, the 9 other issues, were discussed.
They were discussed.
And they went without incident.
Without incident,
Okay.
yes. And indeed, there were even requests that they have to present reports in areas that we were not satisfied. For example, when it comes to housing, the committee was not pleased that as a country we still don't know the number of bungalows we have. He said we don't. He said his predecessor had put up a committee, but they haven't finished.
We don't have an asset register.
No.
Okay.
So he said that he was hoping that by end of September, he's asked them to expedite action because it's worrying.
Please help me again. And when I have people like you with experience and Nana and all that, I try to learn.
Sure.
I thought that one of the things we did with respect to the transition was to do it in such a way, the law, the time and others, for us to be able to take stock.
Yes, and track all of this.
You are right. All of these things. So
you are right.
Why would we have a situation
the
like
Presidential Transition Act. But if you have observed, over the period, the people who manage the presidential transition have focused more on cars. More cars.
In fact, there is a designated, there's a position.
Administrator General.
Yes.
Yeah. So you are right, but that's the challenge. You see what we are grappling with even at lands, where since February 2022, when Parliament requested, what's the state of public lands? How many have been sold? Who have you sold to? What is left, if any? We still cannot be told. And it's the same situation with our bungalows. So now to the vexed matter of responding to the victims of the spillage, VRA spillage from the Akosombo and Oppong dams. It is absolutely crucial for us to state and to emphasize that the only victims, the real victims in this matter, are the 1,360 fellow Ghanaians, fellow compatriots, who are still living in tents 1 year since the disaster. In a few days from now, September 15th, will be exactly 1 year since, no fault of theirs, they lost everything they have worked for all their lives. So the attempt by some people to engage in grandstanding, to appeal to pity, and to create the impression that they are the victims, there's a chairman who is trying to bully them. The real victims, the only victims in this matter, are 1,360. And this figure, only last week, when the Akosombo Spillage Committee, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, invited us, they invited affected communities. They asked us to come with our DCs, our chiefs, and the NADMO directors. These are the figures confirmed. Indeed, it was the President's representative, the Honorable DC, who read out these figures at the meeting and spelled out the names and submitted a report to the committee. 1,360 still living in tents. Just imagine that for a second. That you had your own home. You had your own livelihood. You had your own independence. And then suddenly, no fault of yours, there is a spillage, a man-made disaster, and you have to bear the brunt for a whole year. So the victims in this matter are not we, the politicians, concerned about our egos. It's not about ego tripping. It is about the people, and we ought to focus on the victims. And you see, Doc, when you go to these camps where they are living in tents, you will break down. And I always break down. The last time the Akosombo Spillage Committee came on a tour, they couldn't handle it. You can talk to them. the committee is chaired by the MPP MP for Tepa. You know, the Honorable Bejua, Reverend Ntoso and others are in that committee. They just couldn't take it. And guess what? When we arrived, for the third time, Ghana Water Company had come to disconnect the only source of water they have at the camps. Can you believe that? Mm-hmm. Can you believe that? Yes. That is the level of inhumanity.
But what was the arrangement with the Ghana Water Company? Or who was supposed to pay? The residents?
So they expect them to pay.
Mm-hmm.
They expect the victims, the displaced victims, mm-hmm. to pay. Can you believe that? People whose livelihoods have been destroyed.
At least somebody must pay. If
so
government, yes.
So I have on 2 occasions been called upon by the victims that their water has been disconnected. I rush there, I pay. I tell the district director that, look, bring me the bills. Don't take it out on the people. If you people can't even extend some humanity and at least offer them a special dispensation, you bring me the bills. And they won't do it. So the chairman of the ad hoc committee had to call the Ghana Water Company MD and warned him that don't do that. And for the third time, I had to pay in their presence. So this is the level of inhumanity. The gross human rights violations that our fellow compatriots are going through. They are the only victims in this matter. They are the real victims. All of government's deadlines, government's assurances have not been met. When the Honorable Minister appeared before us, his whole attitude. So go and watch the video. Evading, refusing to take responsibility. We even asked, we sent our invitation letter more than 2 weeks before your appearance. Tell us why you have missed the deadlines. He will not. He says he wants to go and visit 14 days. He doesn't really trust the report they have brought. I said, 14 days? People are living in such destitution for a year. Look, we as private individuals, we are not government. MP, donors, Fair Sky Group, we were able to build accommodation for these people, permanent houses, in 7 weeks at the peak of the disaster for 600 people. And the whole government, with all our resources, Parliament has approved 280 million cedis for you in the 2024 budget. You cannot, as at now, at least show some good faith. Put up some accommodation for the people. You missed the deadlines. We are asking you, Honorable Minister, so tell us, why the delay? Why are the contractors behind schedule? He says, I'm going there in 14 days. I can't tell you. I mean, and the attitude. So then he introduces, to my shock, he introduces a matter not related to the subject matter before us.
Which matter?
That during the peak of the spillage, I misinformed the country that soldiers had been asked to leave. I was really shocked. I don't know how that is related to the matter before us. That I had said that soldiers had been asked to leave. Meanwhile, the soldiers were only moving to another location. And I said, please, your facts are wrong.
Is that what enraged you?
Really, yes.
Because when I watched,
yes.
I watched you.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
When I watched you, it was clear that you were angry.
Yes, that is what really got me angry.
Your demeanor, your tone, your gesticulation was off point.
Yeah. So that really got me totally outraged. Because apart from the fact that he was just peddling blatant falsehood on my person, fortunately, that soldiers incident, I was with a TV3 crew. The TV3 crew, you can talk to them. Indeed, later that day, I saw an article from Timothy Goba of Daily Graphic and Della Russell of Daily Graphic confirming that they were also on the ground. And that what I put out was a fact. The commander told us that they have been asked to leave.
We discussed it.
Yes, they have been asked to leave. And indeed, they packed the boats into their trucks, went to the Best Care Hotel where they were lodging, packed out their stuff, and were leaving. But because of the breaking news on TV3 and the national uproar, they were then asked to return. So they came back to that same place where we were still there working with the TV3 crew. And then the commander told us, order from above, it's been reversed. They've told us to come back. And then they offloaded their boats and then began to do their work, ferry people, across the waters, the high waters. Remember that the whole Mefe was submerged, And so it's not like a river, but it had become an artificial river because of the spillage. So the distortion that he introduced, the red herring, really. And it was clear that the Honorable Minister just had an agenda. I know that I have not been fair to the people, but I will not admit it. I will not take responsibility. I will not be empathetic. I will not show any, remorse. I will just come and deflect, get under the chairman's skin, put out, distortions, matters about soldiers which were not before us, which were not being discussed, and then just walk away. Treat the committee with contempt. That was really the agenda. So I had to really stamp my authority as chairman of the committee and say that, look, we need to have some order here. There ought to be a leader. That's the chairman's work. The chairman must ensure that there is order, must ensure that we stay focused, we deal with the matters. There are only one set of victims in this matter. The real victims is not anybody engaged in political grandstanding, trying to, pretend to be the victim. The real victims. Can you believe that a whole year people are still living in tents? If these are your relatives, if they are your mothers, your fathers, if it's you yourself, will you accept this? And it's not like it cannot be done. Others have done it.
On hindsight, when it got to that issue, should you have recused yourself because of your personal interest? I mean, you're the MP, you were neck deep, you led the whole process and all that. Obviously,
well,
should you have recused yourself when it got to that issue?
Some have suggested that, but you see, there are other matters, other ministers have responded to where I am involved, and I've handled it pretty well. I've talked about state capture, the land issues. It did not degenerate. I think it's an extreme provocation. This blatant falsehood about what I said about the soldiers. And you see the video, the soldiers were packing out. They were totally leaving.
So, some will also say that a leader is also expected to
Yeah.
contain.
So if you notice, I even when colleagues were saying, "Oh, the camera should go off" and all of that, I said, "No, let's keep it on." I adjourned proceedings for 5 minutes. We went into conclave, and we agreed to play by the rules. People should respond to the questions. The minister should speak to the questions.
So how did you end it? How was the result?
And so we came back.
Yes.
We came back after the break and continued with proceedings. We had a successful end. After his turn, the Roads and Highways Minister took the floor.
So specifically on those issues, what are they?
So he says that within 14 days he wouldn't budge, he wouldn't change, he wouldn't bring any urgency. He says within 40 days, that's the best he can do. 14 days, okay. 1-4. He will go there and find out why the contractors have delayed and why they've missed their deadlines. And then we ruled that within 3 days after, whenever he decides to go there, within 3 days, he should let us have a report, because we must present our comprehensive report to plenary. And plenary will want to know, because the Assurances Committee hearings, members want to have results. That is why, for the first time, we have even introduced this novelty of the MPs who raise the issues, raise the questions, joining us, okay, so that they can, in real time, confirm whether what the ministers, because it's not always that we are able to do a field visit to confirm what the ministers are telling us. But when the MP, who is conversant with the matter, who is raising issues, in their constituency is there, they are able to verify and validate what has been put out there by the ministers who appear before us. So we will wait for their report. It is really a needless distraction, and I hope that we will focus on the 1,360 fellow Ghanaians who should not still be living in tents. Those tents were not even made for long stay occupation. You know, just a few days, the tents, you see them, they are all wearing out. You know, recently I had to select the elders amongst them, the most senior citizens, and I rented 1 year accommodation for them.
Whoa.
Yeah, those who are above 65 years, because it's just heartbreaking, you know.
Okay.
And you don't wish that even your worst enemy.